Welcome to the Atlantic Current. I'm Vince Martin, here as always with Tull McAdoo from the Irish Politics newsletter. As you can see, our title today is No, we are not talking about Iran. We're going to kind of be the exception to the rule, although we are going to cheat a little bit, Tull. We're going to talk a bit, admittedly, about why we're not going to talk about Iran. And I think one core reason is just, particularly at this point, there's just not that much left to say, right?
Hello, listeners, and to our new listeners. I think everyone is exhausted by the endless Trump and Iran drama. It's like a bad soap opera, Vince. No, I know people are dying, of course, but it keeps looping between outrage, threats, headlines without ever producing a clear solution. And what should be serious foreign policy often turns into a noisy spectacle rather than anything serious, you know. And a lot of people are coming away feeling very cynical about it all. And look, we're no closer to peace 5-6 weeks later now at this stage.
No, I don't think so. I agree. One point I would make too is like kind of none of this is really a surprise how this has gone. We knew the United States and Israeli militaries could kind of do what they wished in Iran for the most part. I said from the jump that Trump could not and would not put boots on the ground. You pointed out that if he didn't do that, we've never had regime change in human history achieved through air power.
No.
So that left one obvious conclusion, which you and I have both made for this entire time, which is that basically this was going to go until Trump decided he was either bored or he had spent enough political capital or what it was, and he was going to walk away and said that he made the greatest deal ever. And that's basically where we're at. As you say, we don't know if that's going to hold. There's still a lot of issues, which that too is not a surprise. There was not a clear, obvious negotiation here that would satisfy both sides. And that's kind of why so many observers thought this was a bad idea, not because they're rooting for Iran. And I'm not saying that like to pat myself on the back or anything like that. I'm not like you. I don't demand that we name episodes after how right you are.
Right. I mean, you're expecting modesty from a Cork man there, Vincent. You're expecting sanity from Trump's foreign policy.
All I'm saying is you're no different than Donald Trump. You're not even retired and you're demanding things be named after you. So,
well, the women ignore me all the time. So you're seeing as you and my listeners, our listeners, sorry, not my listeners, our listeners, Vincent, of course.
Well, let's be honest. You're whose listeners are they if you're the one who's right? I'm kidding. That actually was my idea, and that was our most listened to episode ever, so it wasn't a terrible idea. But
okay.
But yeah, to get back to kind of the very serious topic at hand, I do think there's that issue. Just kind of what else can you say at this point?
Okay, there's people still dying, particularly in Lebanon, right?
Yeah.
The Iranians are coming out saying that, you know, this is not the deal we signed up to. So I'm going to leave it on this and make this prediction only. I don't think the ceasefire will last the 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So if I'm right again, you can name another episode after.
Yeah. That would be my bet if you gave me even odds. And I'm going to give listeners one more reason why we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. And it's a selfish reason, but it's an honest reason. And that's my mental health. I can't do 45 minutes on this. 2 weeks ago, we did an episode on why my country has a massive gun problem and over 40,000 gun deaths, and we can't do anything about it. Last episode, I was trying to get in the mind of a MAGA voter. And now there is just so much stupidity around this in the U.S. that I can't do it. I can't spend 40 minutes wallowing in more. Press secretary, after the ceasefire was announced, put out this statement about Trump's negotiation and leverage and all this brilliance. And then towards the end, here's the quote. Additionally, President Trump got the Strait of Hormuz reopened. Got it reopened. It was already open. Yeah. 6 weeks ago, 85% of Americans didn't even know where the hell the Strait of Hormuz was. That's like me crashing my car into a tree because I was playing a video game on my phone. And then 2 weeks later, going to my wife, hey, honey, I got a new car. Aren't I brilliant? Aren't you lucky to be married to the likes of me? We have Trump supporters calling people on the left stupid. Oh, look at all these dumb people who got upset. He wasn't really going to nuke an entire civilization. Yeah, we knew that. We're not morons. You know who else are not morons? The leadership of Iran.
Yeah.
When he does this screaming madman theory it is an absolutely clear signal to them he wants to do a deal. When he says, if you don't have a deal by Tuesday at 8, or I'm going to kill every one of you, their rational response could be, oh, okay, well, you know what that means? That means we need to give him something at 7:55.
Yeah.
But it also means we don't have to give him much, because at 8:01, he's not going in front of the American public and backing down. We've got 10 years at least of evidence to prove that. So this brilliant negotiating strategy, all it does is just tells Iran, send them something at 7:55 on Tuesday evening. And it doesn't matter. He'll call a ceasefire because he has to call a ceasefire. He has no choice. He can't act on his threat and he can't back down from his threat. He has to pretend he has the wind. And so now we're spending 3 days debating 10-point plans and 15-point plans. And we're just going to sit and watch, as he said, for another 11 days, hope the ceasefire holds. And probably you're right. Assume it won't.
Yes, tackle Trump again, Vincent. But we're going down the rabbit hole. I can see you getting exercised here.
Yeah. I told you. I got a mental health break. We're going to talk about something light and cheery for me, because I'm not sitting in traffic in County Kerry. Ireland is in the middle of something, huh?
We are in the middle of a massive, what turned into a farmers and haulier protest that has been hijacked by right-wing elements. And when I say right-wing elements, some of these people are in my timeline, waving Irish flags, saying Ireland's for the Irish and all that kind of crack.
Yeah, you got some good practice for our social media episode the last couple of days. So.
I have, yes. But I've been cancelled about 20 times today as it is. Yeah, you mentioned County Kerry there, Vincent, and that has been hit the hardest because it can be quite remote, can be quite rural.
Right.
Big shout out to my friend Dan Bogger from down that way. Schools mean all things Kerry. There's very little reliable public transport down there, and there's queues outside petrol stations akin to, the 1970s oil crash. So the few protesters, they were marching for a serious cause at one stage, but they've managed to turn the country into a very expensive car park right now.
Oh, jeez.
And, the government's talking about public order and the greater good and all that, and the protesters are talking about survival, like, it's January the 6th in the United States or something like that. And the rest of us are stuck in the middle, wondering how a dispute about taxes on energy has become a national lesson, and how righteous anger could turn into a massive traffic jam.
When this started, what was the core demand of the protesters? It's lower taxes, and at the end of the day, lower prices at the pump for fuel. That's what what this is focused on.
Particularly centered around hauliers and farmers.
Right.
Who would have been paying a heavy price, who had to be said that they pay a lower tax rate at the pumps than normal punters anyway, but they wanted it even lower.
Gotcha.
And there is a bit of sympathy there for them. There was a bit of sympathy there for them until it was hijacked. And I use the word hijacked quite strenuously because I'm seeing all over social media at the moment, they've been blocking people trying to get to hospital appointments. Reports in the Irish Times, Irish Independent, there are credible reports that people can't get to hospital for their cancer appointments, their surgeries. We had a fight break out on one of our main motorways this morning between protesters and people trying to get to work. If you go to my social media, the Irish Politics newsletter on X, you will see an old lady berating one of the protesters, saying that, she can't get her kids to a hospital who are sick. So things have taken quite a dark turn, and the protesters don't seem to be backing down. I saw another guy from Sligo who is a very far-right agitator, and he set up a gallows on the back of his truck outside a family resource centre in County Sligo and Sligo Town. It was quite dark because the children have been coming in and out of this resource centre all day, and they're seeing this van with a set of gallows.
Yeah.
Set up outside it. Very dark.
For sure. The first time I was ever in Ireland was on our honeymoon. So November 2014. And there was massive protests then, or at least from the coverage seemed to be a lot less dark. But that was over water bills.
Yeah.
Massive protests, yeah. That's something, as an American, struck me as quite unusual. I don't think that would ever happen in America. We do have protests. For some reason, they tend to center more on foreign policy than on domestic policy.
Let me ask you this, Vincent. Do you pay water charges in the United States?
Yeah, usually. A fair amount of us are on wells. I've lived in homes that are on wells, so you're not paying for that. But yeah, if you go through the utility, I can't ever remember at any political level it being an issue at all. It was kind of a funny one to me. we're starting to see here the issue of electric bills creeping its way into politics, in part because if you want to push that argument, you can play the data center boogeyman, and you can make a coherent case that there is a villain, which makes it better politics, right? It's not just it's inflation, electricity up. It's inflation's going up because this representative let Amazon build a data center in her district or whatever it is. So it's creeping in. But I think even in general, like, we wouldn't have protests against prices, I don't think.
But right, it's a case of we still don't have water bills in Ireland, despite Irish Water, the semi-state company that runs Irish water infrastructure, having, you know, €1 billion deficit every year, and this keeps getting plugged by central government, and people refuse to pay for their water. These same people are also complaining about how poor the water infrastructure is.
Right.
I mean, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. And there's a big issue here now with fuel running out in Ireland, because Ireland has only one oil terminal, Vincent. Okay? And that's down in my beloved Cork there at Whitegate, and it's completely blocked. No petrol or fuel trucks can get in or out of it. So all over Munster at the moment, petrol is running out. There's queues at the pumps. I never thought I'd see this in my lifetime. I can remember, you know, my father talking about it in the 70s and things like that. And if your license plate ended in an odd number or an even number, you can only get petrol on that day. Things like that.
Well, they had that in the States too. Yeah.
Yeah. We probably robbed it from the States. Ireland robs most of its ideas from other places. Now, Vincent, we have a problem here as well.
Okay.
The massive amounts of misinformation, and this will feed into our episode on Sunday that will be out next week. So we have one MEP, Kieran Mullally, right? MEP for Ireland Northwest. He got up in the EU Parliament. He started berating the Irish government for putting down the protests with tanks. Tanks on the streets of Ireland, he claimed, no less.
Yeah.
Now, there's a small problem with that, Vincent. Do you want to hazard a guess why the problem is there about tanks on the streets of Ireland?
From the way you're leading into it, I'm guessing that either Ireland doesn't have streets or doesn't have tanks.
Well, Vincent, there you go. Bula bus, my friend. Ireland doesn't have any tanks.
Yeah.
And he's up in the EU Parliament and giving it loads about, you know, the subjugated Irish people over fuel protests and tanks. I mean, Ireland doesn't have any tanks.
Tiananmen Square metaphors do seem a little bit overwrought here, I would think.
Yeah. One person did a Photoshop job of a tractor in front of tanks at Tiananmen Square, you know, and I thought it was darkly amusing because Ireland is probably the least politically violent country in the whole of Western Europe. And
right.
This could have probably been nipped in the bud if the Gardaí or police service had taken a firmer hand last night instead of, you know, trying to play nicey-nicey with these people. And I can't express this enough that they've been hijacked by elements of the far right. Not all, okay? Not all, not everybody. But they're shouting on the streets of O'Connell Street at the moment, Ireland for the Irish. The Irish government's not looking after its people. All the usual tropes. And it's hard to see an off-ramp here now at the moment for the Irish government. I think they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. If they see Gardaí going in with batons on Irish people, essentially. And a lot of these people at these protests aren't farmers either. They were farmers. They were hauliers. And right now it's just been hijacked by, I suppose, social media elements that are looking for a scrap.
Right.
There's a very kind of January the 6th vibe off it, if I may say so myself. You know?
Yeah, that'll endear you even further.
Yes, I mean, look, I've been cancelled 4 or 5 times today. I've been using the block button quite liberally. And I will say this, I look at the accounts before I block them, and I've noticed an awful lot of them are not from Ireland. A lot of them are saying Europe. Now,
taking a step back, like, again, to an American, the fact that the protests exist at all is a little bit strange. Like, are you surprised that this protest happened at all? Is this kind of something that happens in Ireland and maybe Europe more broadly, where there's a short-term difficulty for the people and it leads to protests?
Yes, I'm surprised.
Yeah. Okay.
It shows we're actually quite soft, really. We've come a long way from, you know, kicking the British out 100 years ago, that we can't put up with a little bit of hardship, considering a lot of countries are doing far worse. A lot of these farmers, you know, to get a lot of money from the EU subsidies.
Yeah.
Anything. They're shouting for, you know, they get the EU out of Ireland. A lot of them are on massive subsidies from the EU.
Yeah, there certainly are no farmers in America who scream about the legalized theft by the United States government while also sucking at $65 billion teat of our annual farm bill. So yeah, we have that. That's definitely not a problem we've ever had here.
I can tell you right now, the support is very thin on the ground for these guys. It is carnage out there. People are abandoning their cars, walking up the motorway. And a normal 15 journey for me would take 2 hours last night. It looks like they're not going to back down. Now, the army have been called out, right? So don't think that's ever happened in modern Irish history, that the Irish army has been brought out to deal with a civilian issue, a largely civilian issue. So there will be political ramifications for this. I mean, you have a history in the United States of your National Guard to help with civil incidences, don't you?
Yeah, kind of extreme circumstances they can be called from the government to deal with protests, deal with rioting, things like that. Yeah, one of the most infamous episodes in modern American history came in 1970 at Kent State University in Ohio. The National Guard was called in to deal with the student-led protests, and they killed 4 unarmed students. Yeah, we are familiar with that, but also by definition, if the National Guard is there, things are going badly, whether that's protests getting out of control or with natural disasters where the disaster has overwhelmed local capacity for rescue, recovery, things like that.
Well, luckily in Ireland, the Irish army won't be armed, and so there's no fear of anybody getting shot. But I'm quite sure if you were to lay a finger on half these guys, they'd go down like they were shot anyway, you know. Social media warriors. Now, I know this is going to spread to other parts of the Irish economy. All right. You shut down the fuel coming into the country, you know, you have your multinationals not being able to get their materials. The business lobby groups have been saying to the Irish government a total economy shutdown will happen because we can't get materials delivered. Ireland's a very open economy. We rely very heavily on imports of materials for our manufacturing industries and our pharma that rely on just-on-time inventory, you know, to make their manufacturing process work. And we've seen this with COVID. We've seen this, you know, around the Middle East currently, that any spanner in the logistics of getting just-on-time materials is going to mess with the world economy. We said earlier on that we're not going to talk about Iran, and we won't, but there's some very weird macroeconomic stuff going on around the place that's not really been spoken about either about it, you know.
The thing that strikes me as an outsider is that protesting against the government here, this is not an issue that the government really did anything to cause, is it?
You've hit the nail on the head there, Vincent, as an outsider. This all happened because of a war Ireland has no involvement in.
Yeah.
None. All right. So there's a bit of cognitive dissonance going on here with some of the protesters, you know. I saw one high-profile DJ or something. He was saying, you know, Ireland should demand that the Straits of Hormuz get opened. You know, who are they going to send? Are they going to send me? Am I going to get a hurdy out of the back of the Jeep and go across, you know, and wave it at them? Is it going to be Tull versus Goliath here? Like, I mean, it's ridiculous. You have them on the left saying, you know, Ireland should be a voice for reason and neutrality in the world. The Iranians don't give a about us, and neither does the United States, unless, you know, there's something involving, you know, taxes. I mean, what do they want? And then on the right-hand side, you know, you have them saying, oh, we should welcome Russia into the country. You know, welcome their oil, welcome this. You know, I mean, these people they're not living in a sane geopolitical world at all. I mean, these people are living cloud cuckoo land.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a fella on X call for me to ask the Taoiseach to do something, right? He was calling on me to do something. I can't even get the kids to change the dishwasher. It's mad. Everybody's gone mad. It's driven everybody mad. And the real issue here now, I find, is going to be sick people not getting to their appointments, people that need emergencies not getting to the hospital either. Dublin Fire Brigade wrote as well, also saying, you know, we can't get to these emergencies on time. Can you help us out here? And the protesters are saying no.
Right.
I think this is going to end violently. You're going to see images flashing across your screen there in the United States of people getting bashed over the head, maybe. But I've seen an influx of American commentators also, Vincent, saying the Irish are rising up against their, you know, slave drivers, overlords.
Yeah.
And it's very maggot hawk.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah. They're fighting back against the globalist regime. Yeah. Even as an American, I'm stunned at some of the takes that Americans on social media have about Ireland. We've kind of referenced them off and on, but just the complete and total lack of understanding. And
well, Vince, you talk about Americans' take on social media about Ireland. I worry about Irish people's takes about Ireland on social media also. Far more than I'd worry about Americans. I mean, that guy with the gallows outside the Family Resource Centre, right? On the side of it, he has written, "You are the carbon reduction. Death to all Irish WEF globalist traders." What's that? The World Economic Forum, is it?
It's the World Economic Forum, yeah.
Oh, God, I'm on a list.
In certain corners of the internet, you hear that a lot in America, too. It has developed a sinister reputation as allegedly a place, basically where all the bad people go to plot the subservience and the dominance of everybody else, essentially, which, and it's just really just like a bureaucratic meeting place, essentially.
Right, okay. I better delete my pictures of me at Davos last year. I better take them down from Facebook. I'm the first person they're coming from, I'd imagine. These protests in Ireland, as I said, I think they're going to end quite violently. I mean, do you have any experience of protesting in the United States, Vincent?
No, I'm not very much. I've never done it myself. I believe that if you're going to change your world, you don't go out and protest, stand in the street with a sign. What you do is you start a podcast with a middle-aged Irishman. Broadcast your brilliance to the world. That's how you make real change.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I've ever been in a protest. I went to a college in Connecticut in Northeast U.S. At the time, certainly was known as one of the most liberal left-wing colleges in the country. There was actually a cult classic movie called PCU. American listeners in their 40s and 50s might have seen it. PCU, of course, is supposed to stand for Politically Correct University and all this stuff. It's a comedy, but the movie ends with a protest against protest. That movie, believe it or not, was written by two people who graduated from the college I attended. And that was actually based on a real event, that ending. There was a protest against protest at the school because what would happen, like on Saturday morning, you'd be walking across the quad. I was 19. I'm sure I was hungover every freaking time. And there'd just be like 36 people in front of like the college president's office holding signs. Clinton was president, so we were bombing Iraq. And I think God, I don't know. We're America. We were bombing a bunch of places.
Bombing somebody, yes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. They were protesting that, on our campus. And it's kind of what you're saying about, what are you doing here? First of all, dude, you're 19. Go smoke some weed or something. God's sakes, this is not what you're supposed to be doing in college. But secondly, it was that thing too, who's seeing this? Who's the president of our university? It does not have a hotline to the White House. Bill Clinton's not going to come by and hear your concerns. So we have protests from time to time. They're almost always on the left. January 6th, I guess, would probably be the one notable exception, but I think people kind of tolerate them. But I don't want to say it's un-American because that has a connotation they're not real Americans. But there is a sense here it's kind of it's not really how things get done.
Right. But things get done in smoke-filled rooms and in the back of gentlemen's clubs, is it?
Yeah, that way we can all bitch on social media about it, how terrible our representatives are.
There's probably a podcast in why don't right-wing people riot, but they have been rioting recently across, maybe Europe, Ireland.
Yeah.
I mean, what we're seeing today is not a left-wing protest by any stretch of any imagination.
Right.
And maybe right-wing is probably too strong, or far-right or whatever. There is a far-right element there, but it's probably more populist than anything else. Ireland having its yellow vest moment like they had in France and that kind of thing,
Yeah, that is an interesting point. You can kind of maybe tie that to this whole very popular horseshoe theory, right? That the left and the right are starting to meet in a lot of ways. Because, yeah, that's an interesting point here. But conservatives almost by definition never protested.
I got a very good example of the horseshoe theory, Vincent, that happened yesterday. Paul Murphy, have you come across him in your political travels in Ireland, TD?
Recognize the name, but I don't know enough about him. Yeah.
Yes, very far left TV. He's a member of an organisation called People Before Profit, or Protesters Before Profit was what we usually call it. So yesterday he tried to join the rally. Okay. He's a very far left guy. He'll admit that himself. He's openly, communist, Marxist, somewhere on that scale.
Right.
This is not a label I'm putting on him. It's a label he's put on himself. Okay. It's not Tull having a crack here with him. He'll tell you himself.
If you're in an organization called People Before Profit, I mean, you've kind of settled this debate, right?
Okay, so he tried to join the protest yesterday.
Okay.
And he got chased away. People were shouting and he got chased away, and they were chasing him away by saying, am I a man or a woman? They were, he was getting mocked for his gender views.
Yeah.
And the people that were mocking him were kind of very far right, but he was very far left, and he was trying to join them.
Yeah.
So there's your Horseshoe Terry in action right there. We'll post that video to our Substack for the world to marvel on. So,
yeah.
We are where we are, as the fella said, Vincent. I'm going to make another prediction. That's 2 on this podcast, that I think this might end violently, and there's going to be images flashed across the world of, for want of a better word, getting their head smacked in because they wouldn't go home.
Yeah, and this is kind of the way all this stuff goes too. People start doing protests, and even if they're pushing a cause that most people sympathize with, eventually they take it too far. People get annoyed. You drive by somebody's protesting for a cause you support, you give them a couple honks and a wave. Third time you got to make that detour. Your 6-year-old's in the backseat screaming and stuff. Yeah, all of a sudden you're like, I'm just going to run these people over. Yeah, I got to get home. Yeah.
It's going to get old very quickly. People can't go to work tomorrow. As it is at the moment, they're running out of petrol all over Munster, and that's going to spread northwards. So
yeah,
we've panic buying all over the country at the moment, Vincent. So
you said a little bit before you are kind of surprised these protests are taking place, but of course they're not taking place in a vacuum. Is there a sense here that this is happening because fuel prices are the straw that broke the camel's back? I mean, you guys have huge affordability concerns there, as which has become an issue in the U.S. as well, right?
Yes, it is a straw that broke camel's back because we have been having an affordability crisis since Russia invaded Ukraine, and inflation and the price of everything got out of control. It's going to get much worse. The affordability issue, as I said before in a previous podcast, oil is everywhere. It's in everything. Fertilizer. We're going to see knock-ons in the supermarkets now in the next couple of weeks in terms of, the price of your vegetables going up. Anything that's imported in the country is going to go up massively. Ireland is largely a self-sufficient country when it comes to food produce, but we're not immune from, external factors. I don't think people realise actually how worse this is going to get. I genuinely don't think people realise it. I mean, the Straits of Hormuz, they're saying, is open. Sorry to go back there, but the fact of the matter is only 12 tankers have left it since the ceasefire is, and that's not enough to, fuel the whole world. Affordability is going to get much worse in Ireland, and people are complaining now about the pumps and the price of the pumps. And the reason why the government, don't want to hand over the cash and they don't want to back down is because the smart people in the Department of Finance know themselves that there's actually much worse about to come down the line.
If you don't hold the line here, you set a precedent that basically when everything else goes up, people can shut down the country and then get relief on all the other stuff. Yeah.
No, it has to be said, this government's policy for the last 5 years, since COVID anyway, is anytime there's been an issue, let's throw money at it. And the problem there is money is a finite resource, as you know yourself as the finance guy, Vince.
No. Excuse me. I'm an American. So, no, government money is not a finite resource at all.
All right, okay, fair enough. I think your debt's $1 trillion or something.
Forgot who you were speaking to there, sir.
Yeah. So, it is a case over the last 5 years, anytime there's been an issue, throw money at it, let's throw more money at it. But in these tightened economic circumstances, you don't have to be an economics teacher to know that money comes finite pretty quickly.
Of course.
And that's going to feed into a massive global cost of living crisis. And I don't think these people who are protesting today in Ireland actually realise how bad it's actually going to get. They think it's bad now, it's going to get much, much worse.
Yeah, I mean, that's been a political buzzword here for a lot of Trump's term, particularly before Iran. There was a stretch where that was Trump's biggest political weakness, was that affordability concerns were going up. People chose him in part in November 2024. They looked past all his warts because they thought he would fix that. And he famously had a speech a few months back where he called it a hoax. And then very quickly, he and the entire White House machine kind of mobilized to make sure that they backtracked on that. And it's been a really interesting debate here Because I think even the people who are arguing most vehemently that we have a crisis would agree that it's not a broad crisis. It's really not a national crisis. It's really something that affects, depending on how you view it, somewhere between 20 to 70% of Americans. We really have, even by our standards in recent years, just a completely bifurcated economy. And if you look at kind of people in the top chunk, however you want to measure it, they're acting like it's a boom. You know, our travel spending is through the roof. Experiences are through the roof. Real estate is still relatively strong. All these sorts of things. And then if you go to the lower half, particularly if you kind of listen at the company level, retailers who deal mostly with middle to lower class people here, they're telling you that people are acting as if we're in a recession. The perception of us, which has some truth, is that we are an unequal and uneven society. And I think that's certainly true. Even accepting that, our economic situations here are probably more divergent than they've been, perhaps in my lifetime, if not certainly this century, I would say.
Well, you might not have a fuel protest, but I mean, you might have a cost of living protest, maybe, perhaps. I mean, you're fairly self-sufficient. What's the price of a gallon of gasoline over there at the moment, Vincent?
With this pullback since the ceasefire, we're probably back down below $4. So it is on a dollar basis far lower than what it would be in Europe.
Right.
And also we have all these people who, at this point, 80% of us drive pickup trucks and SUVs that get like 12 miles to the gallon too. So I would imagine like our spending on gasoline is probably about the same as yours, even though the price for the liquid is much lower here.
We've moved to electrify everything in Ireland in terms of cars anyway, at least. We also have 50 buses at the moment stuck in Dublin, and somebody forgot to buy chargers for them, would you believe? So they bought 50 electric buses and then put in the chargers properly. Very Irish.
Well, it's not that big a deal. They couldn't get anywhere anyway, so no harm, no foul, right?
Very Irish thing. But back to your point, we're in the midst of a massive oil shock that doesn't just affect what we put in our cars. It just, as I've said before, it's everywhere. It's food, deodorant, toothpaste, the makeup, the war paint the wife puts on her face, shoes.
I'm editing that one out, man.
I might get cancelled for that, or the war paint I put on my face. So it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better, and it's been my mantra since this has kicked off, Vincent. And we're not going to see world stability, I think, for the rest of Trump's presidency. That's 3 predictions I made. So
awesome, love it. I think that's a good way to close, referencing the thing that we swore we weren't going to talk about.
Do we have any more predictions? Do you have any more predictions? The Masters is on this weekend, Vincent.
Yeah, no predictions. Rooting for Rory. I keep making this point on here that Americans love the Irish. And I think Rory kind of proves my point. Americans love Rory McIlroy for reasons that I don't entirely understand. But he's a good guy. He's a great golfer. Like, you can see why people like it, but he actually is one of the biggest fan favorites in the U.S., which is quite funny. It's quite unusual for a foreign golfer.
Right, because he's quite a prickly character, isn't he?
I'll be honest, I just thought he was a really nice guy. I don't follow golf well enough to know that, but maybe that even proves my point further. Like, he acts like American media's like, we're not covering this. No one wants to read this. We like Rory.
Right. Unlike Tiger Woods, who's in trouble.
Yeah, poor Tiger. We're still rooting for Tiger, though. Tiger can do whatever he wants. He was just such an unbelievable force of nature. But yeah, I sympathize with Tiger. I really do. I can't imagine what it's like to be that much better at something than everyone else in the world that your life revolves around, and then lose it, and then you're just supposed to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll go to school and pick my kid up. I played sports till I was 18 and I had to stop, and I was up for 2 years. Like, I really was. Like, I was like, what do I do with my life now? I can't try and put a rubber ball through a round hoop. This is awful. I can't imagine Tiger. Yeah. So, as we've been teasing, we've got our big episode on social media, which we're looking forward to. We're looking forward to recording it. We sure as expletive are not looking forward to doing more research, because I'm already done. I'm already at wit's end trying to figure all this stuff out. But that's going to be a good one. That'll be out on Tuesday. And we hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe.
I'm Tull from the Irish Politics Newsletter.
And I'm Vince Martin.
Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.